Millennials, how to reach this new generation. Coaching led James Capty into teaching 14 years ago. In that time, he's been part of small rural schools, reservation, and larger high schools. James worked with students from 6th grade up to college. James has watched students change and teachers race to keep up. Speaking across the country on improving engagement in schools and better use of technology has helped James define some trends that education is facing. As one of the founders of the hashtag WyoEdChat, which meets on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock, we are reaching out to try to help anyone around education improve education. As a dean of students, James continually has been asking the questions about what leads students to the office. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. James Capty.
Thank you, Tim. And following Olivia is a tough act to follow, that's for sure. She did a great job. So the Millennial Generation, 15 years in the classroom, and all I know for sure is I have more questions than I really have answers. The Millennial Generation started in 1983. Kids were born sometime between 1983 and 2003. They saw computers walk into their home for the first time. The Commodore 64 arrived, and within a few weeks, literally a few weeks, the elk cloner, the first computer virus. And it was created by a 15-year-old student, Rich Skrenta. Education should have taken note. The first artificial heart was installed in 1983. It lasted 112 days. Ever since, technology has been making our lives easier and has been extending life. DeLorean went bankrupt in 1983. There's no going backwards now. There's only moving into the future. The Unabomber. During the 80s, the Unabomber used conventional mail to send 9 bombs protesting government, technology, and whatever else. As a result, we saw an increase in electronic communication because we believed email was safer. Millennials grew up watching Cal Ripken Jr. In the summer of '83, the streak officially started. 17 years later, 2,600 plus games, and he never missed a day of work. Keep that in mind when we talk about millennial work ethic. Records led to 8-tracks, 8-tracks led to cassettes, and in the 80s we saw CDs publicly released. Entertainment no longer had to be waited for. We could find the song, the moment, instantly. Once again, education should have taken note. Emoticons. Who would have guessed they were invented in 1983? Where would we be without Scott Fahlman's invention? Because today, how do we add emotion to our text messages or our emails without emoticons? The first digital communication tool, pagers. Only the in crowd had these in the 80s. By 1994, at their peak, 64 million people had a pager, the first text message device. By 2012, 3.2 billion people had a cell phone. Cell phones came onto the scene. The Motorola Dynatac in 1983 for just under $4,000. You could get 30 minutes of talk time. The Apple iPhone 5, just released, for just under $200, you can get 10 hours of talk time. Millennials know nothing different. Their life has gotten faster and more connected. In that same time, education has moved at glacial speed. Occasionally, a piece of ice breaking away, but overall, the educational glacier has moved very, very little. The 1980s saw the start of the Department of Education. And one of the first things the Department of Education did for us was assess that we were a nation at risk, and education played a key role in that. So once we knew we were a nation at risk, we decided, well, we better set some goals. And so we followed with Goals 2000, so we knew where we needed to go and what we needed to accomplish. And then we realized our generation's goals weren't fitting the millennials. And so we decided we better change that and leave nobody behind. So in the last 30 years, education has seen very little change, but we try. Millennials have seen their computers and their cell phones go from the Commodore 64 and the Motorola Dynatec to instant access anywhere, mobile devices, touch screens, as well as augmented reality. In that same time, education has gone from here to here. Not nearly as much change. Quick activity for you. Everybody, look at the screen. Pick one card. You only get one card. Put it in your memory right now. Everybody's got their one card picked. Okay, once you have your one card chosen, you're going to talk to your neighbors very quickly. Very quickly, I want you to come up with, any way you can, come up with the number that I put on the screen. Here we go. Come up with the number I put on the screen now. 56. Talk to your neighbor. Come up with the number 56. When you get it, raise your hand. If you can come up with the number 56, raise your hand. And I'll try to see you. Well, we got one. Of course, we've got children in the middle that are going to figure it out. Looking for other options? Looking for other options? Okay, how many? Looks like we got a few that got to 56. We got a few that couldn't get to 56. How many of you are still trying to remember your number? Raise your hand. That would be the baby boomer generation right there. Okay? So let's try it one more time. You might have to talk to a few more people. Everybody remember what your card is. We're going to try to get to 103. Raise your hand when you get to 103. Don't be afraid to talk. There's power in the room. There's power in collaboration. I'm seeing some air math being done. We're getting closer. Haven't seen anybody with their hand raised yet that they've got there. Okay, here's what we know. Here's what we know about this. How many of you got to 103? Okay, how many of you got, oh, we got one back there, we got one over here. How many of you got close to 103? We got a couple in the middle. The longer a student stays in education, the more likely they are to add the cards. Our students with the greatest math knowledge are more likely to simply add the cards. We need a new measuring stick in education. We need a way to have kids run instead of finish education. The Millennial Generation has also been referred to as the gaming generation. 3.2 billion hours a week. 3.2 billion hours a week are spent gaming. The vast majority of the time spent playing a game is failing. Failing again, and coming back and redoing and redoing. And yet they still continue to come back. Unfortunately, in schools, oftentimes one failure is enough to change our grade, to inhibit our ability to move on, to hamper our ability to get a scholarship. This generation wants to try. They want to fail. But the environment that we put them in on a daily basis doesn't allow it. Are we going to continue to let buses and athletics dictate our schedules? Scheduling is one of those great things. I have 6 siblings. I have 5 siblings. I'm the youngest of 6. 2 years ago, we tried to set up a family reunion. 3 of us are teachers. Should have been pretty easy. Summer seems like an opportune time. Unfortunately, it was almost an act of God to get 5 of us there. The 6th one still hasn't showed. In your lives, in students' lives, scheduling is a challenge. So when should we start school? What time? What date? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. The millennials have more access, but don't know what we want them to know. What do we know about millennials in the workforce right now? We know that they enjoy a flexible schedule as much as they enjoy good salaries. And what are employers learning? With a flexible schedule comes the benefits of increased performance. So if it works for parents, why can't it work for students? Personalization. Dr. Ann touched on personalization. And personalization is one of those things that as education and educators, we must take the lead on. Because as the web becomes more personalized, it no longer gives us all the information. As Amazon, Google, Facebook, whatever source we're looking at, starts to cater the information to what we like, we're not getting the facts. We're not getting the whole story anymore. And so as education, it's our job to help people see and find the facts and find the truth on the devices that they all have in their hands. Is seat time the best indicator of learning potential? Is age the best indicator of educational ability? I believe all of you have shoes on, and if you don't, your feet are cold. And I'm pretty sure that if I had you put on your neighbor's shoes, it probably wouldn't be a comfortable experience for you. But unfortunately, over the last 30 years, education has tried to make one size fit all. And it's time to change that. How do we change that? Well, let's ask them. First off, let them bring their own technology. Let them bring their own devices. Keeping up with this production of continual devices is a challenge. New iPad out in just a few days, Google Glasses, Samsung Galaxy Gear. Can we keep up with that? I don't believe we can. But can we build an infrastructure? Absolutely. Can schools financially try to keep up with this? I don't think this is our best choice. But we can invest that money into infrastructure and have the greatest infrastructure and allow anyone to connect their devices. Now we're using what they're using at home and engaging them in the classroom. This also helps parents become more engaged in the devices they're using. In the words of the great 80s movies, build it, and they will come. What if we took all that money we saved from chasing tech gadgets and we used it to create coaching staffs in schools, and each teacher was given a coaching staff that stayed with them all day? Let's think about what a great coaching staff does. They analyze film. They video every practice and game. They have practice plans. They set kids up to use their strengths and help them with their weaknesses. We would never have the football coach put the kicker in the game and try to run for 3-4 different plays, and when he fails, pull him out of the game and yell at him. So if we put teachers in a situation where they had a coaching staff that worked with them every single day, what could that educational environment look like? And we often talk about bringing business leaders into the classroom, but we don't know how to get them in there. What if they were part of the farm team? What if they were part of the team that came in? And young teachers came in as well. Not only would we create an educational environment that was better for all the students, we'd create our own farm system of not just good, not average, but great teachers to keep education moving forward. Can we change education? Will we change education? Education will change no matter what we do. The question is, are we brave enough to lead? Thank you.